I have a lot of books. I have a bit of a spending problem, and I impulse buy all the time. I was especially collecting books in college. So when I decided to start this channel, I decided I want to go through all the books I currently own and get rid of any I just knew I wasn't going to read. That way I could start fresh and actually read the books I own. So this will be a quick unhaul of any books I decided I'm just not going to read, or books that I've read but I just know I'm not going to read again. The first book is Leslie's Journal by Alan Stratton. I think I got this in high school and I just don't think I'm going to read it. The next is Boy Proof by Cecil Castellucci. I think a friend actually gave this to me a long time ago and I've had it for years, and if I haven't read it yet, then I'm probably not going to read it now. The next book is Then We Came to the End by Joshua Ferris. I bought this for $5 at Chapters, and yeah, I don't know why I do that. I was just drawn in by the post-it cover and I know I'm not going to read it. The next book is Dead to Me by Kath Staincliffe. I think I got this in a subscription box, and I just have so many thrillers, and I love thrillers, they're my favorite genre, but this one just doesn't interest me. The next is The Long Walk by Stephen King. I've read this, it was okay, and but I know I'm not going to read it again. Next is Divergent by Veronica Roth. I read this, I actually really enjoyed it. I've never picked up the second book though, hopefully someday I will, but yeah, I just know I'm not going to read it again. The next book is Shattering Glass by Gail Giles. Apparently I've read this, I had this in my read section, but I don't remember anything about it, so clearly I must not have enjoyed it that much, I guess. Next book is Dating, Mating, and Manhandling, the Ornithological Guide to Men. My cousin gave me this, but I don't really love self-help books, especially ones about dating. I have a man, and even if I didn't, I probably wouldn't listen to a self-help book for it. The next two are by Louise Renison. They're the third and fourth book in the Georgina Nicholson series. I actually really loved this series. I still have the first two books, but I just know that I'm probably not going to read these. I keep the first two just as like a memento from my youth or whatever, but I'm not going to read these two again, so I might as well pass them on. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. I read this in high school. This was actually from my high school. Apparently I never gave it back. I enjoyed it, but I'm probably not going to read it again. And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I read this in grade school and loved it, so I bought a copy for myself. I recently reread it and realized it was not quite as good as I remember. I think I must have been grading on a curve for why I love this book when I had to read it. I just find it very simple and not very complex. The Giver by Lewis Lowry. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was as mind-blowing as it's kind of been made to be. I still plan on reading the rest of the series though, but I won't be reading it again. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. I read it, I didn't love it, I thought it was really slow, and I might pick up the rest of the series, but I just don't know. I mean, I haven't yet, and I read this like 5 years ago, so. In the Unlikely Event by Judy Blume. I got this in a subscription box, and I just don't have that much interest in it. The One and Only by Emily Griffin. I also got this in a subscription box, and once again, just not a huge amount of interest. I think it has something to do with football, which I'm not a big sports girl, but I do love Friday Night Lights, so I did consider reading it, but I just think that someone else will enjoy it more. Glimpse by Carol Lynch Williams. This is told in verse, which I was really into for a while because I really love Ellen Hopkins, and so that's why I picked this up, but once again, I just never picked it up again, and I'll just read more Ellen Hopkins really if that's what I want to read. Bad Apple by Laura Ruby. This was a cover purchase. I loved the cover, I bought it, I never read it, so. The Secret Year by Jennifer R. Hubbard. Yeah, I'm not a big romance girl, and I just feel like I'm never gonna get around to it. XVI by Julia Carr. I bought this one like dystopians were all the rage, and I think this has something to do with how girls get a tattoo or something once they turn 16, and then they're like ripe for love making or something. Yeah, I'm just over that sort of dystopian thing. Unless it really grabs me, I just don't need to read anymore. Our Endless Number of Days by Claire Fuller. I read this, I thought it was super boring, I just wasn't a fan. Time to pass it on to someone hopefully who will like it more. Pop Goes the Weasel and The Doll's House by M.J. Arledge. I actually really like this series. This is the second and third book in the Helen Grace Thrillers crime series. The first one called Eenie Meenie, which is a terrible name for a book, but I really loved the first book. I really like her as a character, and I haven't got around to reading the rest of the series, but it's definitely like top of my list. Liar by Justine Larbalestier. I just feel like I've grown out of this. This is about someone who's a compulsive liar, which I thought was really interesting, but I've had this for years, since high school, I think, and I've just never picked it up again. The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton. I think this might be a historical fiction, which just isn't my type of genre. How Are You Happy by Lisa Sugar. Once again, I'm just not a self-help book person, and so I know I won't read this. Entangled by Kat Clark. I really like the cover. I think she wakes up in a room and she needs to figure out how she got there because she can't remember any of it. That sort of premise really intrigues me, but I've also read a lot of books like this, and this one didn't have the best reviews, so I'm gonna pass it on. 13 Days to Midnight by Patrick Carman. I actually lent this to a friend and they really didn't like it, so it's always kind of stuck in the back of my mind how much they didn't like it, so I don't think I'm going to be reading this one, so I'm going to pass it on. Gossip Girl Psycho Killer by Cicely von Ziegler. I've never been a huge Gossip Girl fan. I liked the show well enough. I never actually watched the last season of it, but I never read the books. I tried reading the first one and I just couldn't get into it, but I did like that this was a horror spin on it, but once again, I just haven't read it. Poor Little Bitch Girl by Jackie Collins. I think the name and the cover drew me in, and I think it was on the $5 rack, but it just wasn't worth the buy. Tricky 22 and Turbo 23 from Janet Ivanovich. I read both of these. I enjoy her series. I will always continue to read her series and always be caught up in it because it's just a fun time. I mean, they're repetitive as heck, but they're just good and fun and light and easy, and sometimes you need that, so they were well loved, but time to move on. The Bitch Posse by Martha O'Connor. I just never get around to reading these types of books. The Burn Palace by Stephen Dobbins. I have read the synopsis to this so many times and I still don't understand what it's about, so. The Dead and the Gone by Susan Beth Pfeiffer. I think this is a second book in this series. I read the first one and I didn't really enjoy it. It's another dystopian thing, kind of, sort of, I don't know, about how the weather like destroys the world and stuff, and I don't know. It was kind of interesting, but I just didn't like the first one enough to really want to read the second one. Party by Tom Levine. I just feel like I've grown out of this. I think this was another impulse buy because it was like $5 or something. I Swear by Lane Davis. Another thing in high school, or another young adult book about people who are all telling different versions of the same story, I think. I don't know. It's just a book about a group of friends and they all have different perspectives of things, and there's just so many of these books to read and I'm just not that interested in this one. And the last two books are by Ellen Hopkins. This one is Tricks and Perfect. I've read them both and I love Ellen Hopkins and I always tried to collect her books, but I'm just realizing now that there are some I love more than others and I don't need to keep the ones that I'm just not going to read again. And that's it. I got rid of 39 books, which is pretty good. I think I have about 80 or 90 books left, and hopefully I am going to read them all. So I hope you'll stick around and check out more of my content, and thank you for watching this video. Goodbye.